Incredible single dad discovers beaten woman and her child days later, shocking truth is revealed. Rain hammered against Mike's windshield as he drove home, each drop mirroring the weight pushing down on his chest. Just another evening at the auto shop, repairing engines while time gnawed at the absence of his wife. Living with grief was his daily mechanic, the bend of his wrench, the roar of the engine, all muffled under the overwhelming shadow she left behind. He glanced at the empty passenger seat, where laughter used to coexist with the scent of her perfume. Now, silence filled that void, leaving him to wonder how to provide a future for his spirited daughter, Lily. His headlights flickered across the roadside, revealing a woman hunched over, clutching a small child. Mike's heart jolted, pragmatism battled compassion as he pulled over. The woman looked up, her eyes clouded with pain, and his protective instincts surged forward. "Are you okay?" he called out, his voice barely breaking through the pounding rain. When she didn't respond, he climbed from his truck, urgency propelling him toward them. "Please, I need help," she whispered, panic evident in her trembling frame. This wasn't just a case of car trouble, it was something deeper, a desperation that ignited a chaotic rush within him. He fought off doubts, could he really take in a stranger? But the small child, wide-eyed and shivering in the rain, shattered his hesitation. "Get in," he said, the decision already echoing in his mind. He led them back to his modest home, aware that bringing them under his roof could alter everything he'd built for Lily. Days went by, and the novelty of the arrangement began to weave its own complexities. Mike found himself balancing his new responsibilities with fatherhood. Lily's spirit remained bright, but amorphous shadows loomed over the household as Sarah navigated the chaos of her past. He felt the walls of his safe bubble tremble, each shared story about their lives twisted the blade of his loss, an ironic reminder of what had been taken from him. Then came the first revelation, like a storm breaking on the horizon. Sarah was not just a victim of circumstance. Her father was a wealthy entrepreneur, the man whose actions had cast her aside in pursuit of prestige. This jarring truth collided with Mike's reality like a runaway truck, igniting fury within him. He questioned the societal structures around him, the very paradigms he had quietly accepted all his life. Could he stand against the silent biases that followed them like shadows? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Mike's mind raced as he confronted the implications of this newfound knowledge. He could barely catch his breath, the internal conflict tightening its grip. If he continued to harbor Sarah and Tommy, could he endanger Lily's sense of security? Questions roared through him, pushing the internalized fear of failure to the forefront. Would he actually dare to protect a stranger, risking everything for an unknown outcome? The pressure of standing up to a societal injustice weighed heavily. Each moment felt like a fragile thread tightening around his heart. Then one fateful morning, a letter arrived, its seal unmistakable, a reminder of privileges Mike had worked alongside all his life. Drawing a shallow breath, he held it against the wall of his chest, feeling the world pulsate around him. The ripples spread beyond his reach, threatening to unravel the fragile fabric of his family. Would he betray the loyalty to the family he had lost or risk everything to become the protector of those who now held his heart? Chaos brewed, and as he looked at Sarah, it ignited the realization that the stakes had never been higher. Mike stood, the letter clutched tightly in his hands, heart pounding in a rhythm that matched the unrelenting rain. The implications of Sarah's heritage struck him like a cold wave. It wasn't just about offering shelter, it was about a confrontation with a world he thought he understood, yet was now revealing itself to be far more complex and unjust. This moment demanded choices, and his pulse quickened with each potential consequence swirling in his mind. Cautiously, Mike approached Sarah, sitting in a corner of the small living room, her hands wrapped around a chipped mug of tea. She stared blankly, lost in thoughts that mirrored his own turmoil. As he sat down beside her, the weight of their shared silence was tangible, pressing down on them both. "Sarah," he finally began, voice steadier than he felt. "What happens when your father finds us?" Her eyes flickered with a mix of defiance and fear. "He won't come looking for me," she replied, though uncertainty danced in her voice. "He's the one who turned his back. I'm not part of his world anymore." "But he won't stop until he finds you," Mike pressed, grappling with the urgency within himself. "You're holding a truth that can destroy everything we're trying to build here." The flicker of her defiance dimmed slightly. "I didn't choose this. I can't just disappear because he decides to exert control over my life." "Neither can Lily or I," he said, feeling the heat rising in his chest. "What if he sends someone? What if he threatens us? I can't risk Lily's safety. I just can't." The room stilled, the sound of rain created a backdrop of tension, accentuating the fragile thread connecting their destinies. Sarah's face turned pale. For a moment, they sat together in the weight of their shared reality, a battle between freedom and fear. "We can't ignore it," Mike said decisively, his mind racing. "He was a father first and foremost. I need to figure out a way to prepare us. I cannot let him intimidate us into silence." As they locked eyes, something shifted. Mike saw the remnants of her fight emerging, the flicker of determination softly illuminating her features. "If we report him, if we're open about our situation," she began, but her voice trailed off, uncertainty creeping in once again. The floodgates of wild possibilities opened in Mike's mind. Would confronting her father mean risking a legal battle, bringing unwanted attention to himself? Every route seemed treacherous, yet he felt a strange pull, a growing sense of responsibility that compelled him to navigate this dark maze. It was not only about protecting Sarah, it was about reinforcing the values he wanted to instill in Lily. "I'll figure out my options," he said quietly, though doubt gnawed at him. Would he be enough to shield them from the unpredictable consequences of familial revenge? How did one battle against the weight of privilege and oppression? Hours turned into a restless night as he contemplated strategies while Lily slept peacefully, blissfully unaware of the growing storm brewing just outside her sanctuary. But within him, uncertainty brewed like a potent fuel of fire ignited by a newfound realization that his purpose was broader than he ever imagined. Tomorrow, he would begin to unravel this mess. It was time to empower himself and those he cared for. But with each step forward, lingering questions loomed. What would he discover about himself along the way? What truths about loyalty, justice, and courage awaited him in cautious exploration? The time had come to face external demons while battling the internal ones. As he lay awake that night, a murmur whispered through the humid darkness. He would confront not only the challenges partnered with protecting the vulnerable but also the fears hidden deep within himself, ready to push every boundary that had once held him captive. Morning light broke through the clouds, casting a muted glow across the living room where Mike sat, backlit by the soft amber hue. The world outside was awakening, but within him, a storm brewed. He had barely slept, replaying the previous night's conversation in his mind, weighing choices like stones in a backpack he couldn't shed. As he sipped his black coffee, an unexpected surge of clarity surged through him. Today would be different. Today, he would take control. But where to start? He could report Sarah's father, as their discussion suggested, but it wasn't merely a matter of jurisdiction, it felt like a declaration of war. Which side would society rally behind, Sarah, the runaway, or her father, the powerful? Even as squeezing the message out of his mind felt paralyzing, he had come to realize he needed to fight, not just for Sarah, but to teach Lily about resilience and justice. His resolve steeled, Mike moved toward the computer. The moment he sat in front of the sleek keyboard, his fingers hovered, wrestling with the imprint of self-doubt. He imagined Sarah's fear bubbling as the screen lit up, a portal into the system that felt both inviting and suffocating. After a few deep breaths, he typed protecting victims of domestic abuse. The search results flooded the page like a chorus, each link a potential lifeline. Scanning through resources, Mike felt anger bubbling in his chest. How could the very systems meant to protect often overlook those in desperate need? But in that moment of fury, he found something else: a sense of direction. He scribbled notes about local shelters, legal aid services, and advocacy groups. He delved deeper, promising only to absorb what he could. Every piece of knowledge reshaped his understanding. This was a world he had never navigated before, but the fear of the unknown paled in comparison to the compulsion to do something, anything. Before he could second-guess himself, he reached for his phone to call a nearby advocacy group. They answered promptly, guiding him through their protocols and letting him know about available resources. Listening intently, Mike jotted down every name, every number. This was something he could do, a tangible step toward protecting Sarah and Lily. 15 minutes into the conversation, a wave of anxiety gripped his chest. He was opening a door, one that exposed himself to a tangled web of consequences. What if Sarah's father retaliated beyond the immediate threats? They might lose the fragile semblance of safety they had before the chaos unfolded. But the thought of sitting idly by and allowing fear to root him in inaction felt unthinkable. Mike's mind shifted toward Sarah. She needed to know he was taking steps to help her reclaim her life, but how would she react to his decisions? Would it bring her hope or heightened fear? The balance of giving her agency without overwhelming her was precarious. He had to approach this delicately. As the day slipped away, Mike felt a flicker of empowerment he hadn't tasted in years. This quest wasn't solely about Sarah, it became about rediscovering his own strength and redefining his role as a father. He envisioned Lily growing up in a world where doing the right thing meant speaking out, confronting antagonists, even internal ones. Later that evening, as they all gathered in the cozy atmosphere of their small living room, Mike prepared to share his findings. Sarah needed to know her life mattered enough to fight for, even if the battle loomed violent and far-reaching. This was the moment for honesty, collaboration, and active empowerment. Sarah, he started, breathing deeply to center his voice against the mounting uncertainty. I've been thinking, but before he could finish, the doorbell rang, jolting their world. A sharp bolt of fear shot through him. Who could it be? Would it be her father, or something far worse? The stakes they were playing for now danced dangerously close to the edge. Mike's determination faltered momentarily as he locked eyes with Sarah, who mirrored his trepidation. As dread settled around them, he understood that whatever waited on the other side held the potential to dismantle everything or redefine it. Mike's heart raced as he approached the door, every nerve ending tingling with anxiety. He glanced back at Sarah, whose wide eyes reflected a mix of fear and uncertain hope. It took everything in him to push the weight of dread aside, he couldn't let it overshadow this critical moment. As he turned the doorknob, he braced himself for anything, yet nothing could prepare him for the sight that met him. There stood a police officer, stern but compassionate, her presence imbued with gravity. "Mr. Sullivan?" she asked, her tone formal yet tinged with urgency. "Why, yes," Mike stammered, pulling the door open wider. The officer was watching him closely, and he wondered if she could see the storm raging inside him. "We need to speak with you regarding Sarah," she said, the very mention of her name halting his breathing. "May we come in?" "Sure," he replied, stepping aside and gesturing for her to enter. The edges of his world were suddenly fringed with implications too weighty to bear alone. As the officer crossed the threshold, Mike felt the weight of scrutiny tag along with her. In the living room, the atmosphere shifted palpably. Sarah sat stiffly on the couch, her gaze darting to Mike, filled with an urgency that spelled unspoken questions. He joined her, placing a protective hand on her knee. The officer took a seat across from them, creating a barrier that felt simultaneously comforting and foreboding. "Sarah, I need you to know that we take these matters very seriously," the officer began, her voice gentle yet commanding. "We've received troubling information about your father." Mike's pulse quickened. This was the moment he had both anticipated and dreaded. Sarah's life hung in this balance of truth unfolding. What do you mean? Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as if afraid to break the fragile silence. Your father has been alleged to have engaged in abusive behavior, the officer explained, her eyes assessing Sarah for a reaction. We want to gather more information and ensure your safety. Mike glanced at Sarah, who processed the information in a whirlwind of emotions. He could see the flickers of anger mixed with relief battling in her expression. He squeezed her knee just a little tighter, uncertain yet determined to support her through this maelstrom. What does this mean for me? For us? She finally asked, looking at both Mike and the officer. It means you have a voice, Sarah, the officer said firmly. You don't have to go back, we can help you set up a safe plan. Mike felt a surge of pride mingled with anxiety. This was a glimpse of the fight he had envisioned, tangible support, validating Sarah's strength. Yet the looming shadows of her father's power still chilled the air. What if he finds out where I am? Sarah's voice quavered, the fear of her father looming larger than the potential for freedom. Then we will take the necessary steps, the officer reassured her. Your safety is our priority. I can help you file a protection order if that's what you want. In that pivotal moment, Mike could almost feel Sarah's determination hardening. He sensed she was beginning to see beyond the immediate fear, to envision a future where her voice reclaimed power over her life. Can we talk in private? Mike asked suddenly, uncertainty woven into his voice. This was about sharing control, a delicate dance of agency between him and Sarah. He wanted to respect her autonomy while still guiding her through a maze of choices that felt bewilderingly complex. The officer nodded, allowing them a moment alone. Mike, Sarah said, her voice steadier now, what should we do? I don't want to make things worse. He took a breath, anchoring himself in her gaze. We face this together. Whatever happens, I've got your back. I won't let you fight alone. As they prepared to reconvene with the officer, Mike felt the tendrils of fear loosening their grip on him. The shadows of doubt remained, yet in the light of their shared resolve, pride bubbled beneath the surface. But as Mike turned to speak to the officer again, a chilling thought sliced through his confidence. Would this new path spark chaos between Sarah and her father, unleashing forces they were unprepared to combat? The stakes had never been higher, there was no turning back now. In this moment, Mike realized that the imminent confrontation didn't just stare at them from outside those doors. It lived in the heart of his family. The time had come to face not only the darkness lurking beyond but also the potential for shattered illusions within. Mike's mind raced as he and Sarah reconvened with the officer, his earlier bravado slipping away, replaced by a deep sense of trepidation. What would it mean for them if they chose this path? While Sarah's resolve shimmered beneath the surface, Mike felt the weight of their world shifting, like tectonic plates beneath their feet. Let us discuss your options moving forward, the officer prompted, her tone inviting but clinical. As she began outlining a plan, temporary housing, protective measures, and legal resources, Mike struggled to focus on her words. Questions spiraled through his mind. How long would it take for the tension to settle? Would they be safe? The dilemma loomed large: intervene now and possibly escalate Sarah's father's unpredictability, or remain silent and jeopardize Sarah's chance at real freedom. Mike? Sarah's voice cut through his reverie. She met his gaze, vulnerability etched on her face, seeking his guidance amid the chaos. He took a moment to gather his thoughts, aware of the critical responsibility weighing upon him. I think we need to pursue this. We have a chance to protect you. We can't let fear dictate our choices. His voice sounded firm, but the tremor in his chest betrayed the anxiety underlying his conviction. The officer nodded, her expression aligning with the gravity of the moment. You're making a brave choice. Sarah, it's important to outline your feelings about this. Can we involve my brother? Sarah asked tentatively, her eyes darting to Mike. He's always been there for me. The suggestion startled Mike. While it was admirable to consider family, every addition to this chaotic plan felt like adding fuel to an already volatile fire. Yet, he understood the comfort of familial ties, especially in crisis. If you feel he can provide support without complicating things further, then yes, he replied, his voice laced with uncertainty. As he spoke, a realization dawned on him. The conversation was more than just logistical, it was a confrontation with familial loyalty and the scars of their pasts. He'd been thinking of Sarah's safety, of the choices he had to make for her. But what of his own family? Would they rally around him, or would this fracture the very support system he had relied upon for so long? While discussions continued, Mike observed Sarah intently. Her bravery inspired him, igniting a familiar flame within his heart. He felt a pull to take ownership of this experience not only as her protector but as an advocate for her autonomy. Sarah, if you want to move forward with this plan, we need to be completely open with the authorities. No secrets, okay? He felt the pull towards honesty, aware that they were wading into treacherous waters where one misstep could lead to disaster. Yeah, she replied softly, her determination shining through the fear still clinging to her voice. I want to speak my truth so I can finally be free. A pang of admiration struck Mike as he witnessed her evolution. He saw her steadily morphing into the person she always could be, a fierce warrior ready to reclaim her life. As they wrapped up their meeting, Mike realized the shifting tides were not just about Sarah's situation. It brought forth his own burgeoning sense of purpose. He was stepping from the shadows of complacency as a passive bystander into the role of an active supporter, ready to advocate for those he cared about most. But as they left the police station, a sliver of doubt crept in. Would his own unresolved issues and hidden fears undermine their path forward? How could he truly be the rock Sarah needed when his own convictions still felt shaky? With Sarah walking beside him, each step stronger than the last, he steeled himself for the challenge ahead. The decision had been made. Now, the hard part began. They were about to step into a future dictated not by fear, but by the courage they would find within themselves. And still, somewhere in the back of his mind, the looming question echoed, what would happen when her father retaliated against the walls they were erecting? Mike knew the answer. Would come soon one way or another, the confrontation with the past awaited. The streetlights flickered to life as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an ominous glow that mirrored Mike's churning thoughts. Each step felt like a countdown, a reminder of the confrontation brewing just beneath the surface. His resolve was hardening, yet doubt lingered in the corners of his mind, never quite vanishing. Where to next? Sarah asked, her voice steady, but the tremor betrayed the anxiety she felt, echoing Mike's own unease. Let us find a safe spot to regroup and talk things through, he decided. The weight of their choices was pressing down on him. He opted for a small diner down the street, a place that felt comparatively neutral, familiar yet distant enough to quell the heaviness of their situation, if only for a moment. Inside, the diner buzzed with the sounds of clinking dishes and muffled conversations, a backdrop that felt reassuringly mundane. As they settled into a booth, the smell of coffee and fried food wrapped around them, offering a brief respite from their harsh reality. What if her father finds out before we even get started? Sarah voiced his unspoken fear. Frustration creased her brow. What if he tries to come after us? That's a risk we have to manage, Mike replied, trying to meet her gaze with assurance. We'll need to stay alert and always have a plan in place. His fingers absently traced the condensation on his glass, a manifestation of all the pressure building inside him. He had a lifetime of shadowing fear and avoidance. The last thing he wanted was to be responsible for putting Sarah in deeper danger. Do you really believe we can make this work? She asked, vulnerability creeping into her tone. His heart sank as he considered his response. I want to. I think we can. You've already taken the first step speaking out. That takes incredible strength. The sincerity of his tone was met with a flicker of hope in her response, a light against the overwhelming darkness they were navigating. He began to think of his own past, of moments when he stood idly by, allowing fear to dictate his actions. A sharp realization pierced through him: he always avoided confrontation to keep things safe. But this was a different landscape entirely, one that demanded action, no matter how terrifying. The weight of his family flashed through his mind. How much longer could he let them inhabit a world built on illusion? His childhood avoidance had never just protected him, it had stifled his growth. "Sarah, can I ask you something?" Mike hesitated, wrestling with the vulnerability he was about to expose. "Why did you ask about your brother? What did you hope he could do?" She looked pained but thoughtful. "He has always taken my side against my dad. He believed me when I said I was scared. I guess I thought having him with us would remind me I'm not alone." His chest tightened at her admission. Feeling seldom shared was a burden carried. He understood that entirely. Could he find a way to share this journey of vulnerability with his own family? Then let us reach out to him. "Let us pull those who truly support us into this," he suggested. Yet even as the words left his mouth, fears deeper than uncertainty nagged at his mind. What if involving others tore apart their already fraying tapestry even further? The waitress arrived, disrupting the storm of thoughts swirling inside Mike. As she placed a steaming cup of coffee before him, he realized the moment was slipping away, time to act. The urgency of their plight hung in the air, and clarity struck. "After this, I think we should talk to your brother," Mike said, deciding to push forward even with uncertainty. "But we need to keep our heads clear and focus." As Sarah nodded in agreement, Mike felt both excitement and anxiety threading through his veins. They were taking the plunge, envisioning a future that lay ahead. But as it often happens, clarity is oftentimes accompanied by a dawning sense of challenges yet to come. Mike could sense the impending storm and needed to prepare. How would he navigate the tempest that awaited should Sarah's father escalate his threats? With a mutual commitment forged through shared fear and growing determination, they leaned into the unknown ahead, ready to face whatever reflections from their pasts emerged as obstacles in their pursuit of freedom. As they finished their coffee, Mike felt the electricity of purpose coursing through him. The diner's atmosphere had begun to shift, a low hum of conversation now acted as a cocoon, shielding them from distant threats. It was time to reclaim ownership of their lives and move forward, no matter how unsettling the journey had become. "Let us not waste time," Mike suggested, sensing Sarah's resolve hardening alongside his. They left a meager tip for the waitress, an ember of anxiety flaring as they stepped back into the dusky street. The shadows appeared deeper now, a gaping maw threatening to swallow their newly ignited bravery. "Do you think your brother will be on board?" he inquired as they walked, the cool air biting at their exposed skin. "I don't know. He is protective, but there is also a distance between us," she admitted. "I just hope he understands how serious this is." Mike nodded, a latent understanding surging through him. Distance occurred even in healthy relationships, but there had to be a path that could bridge it. Could he extend that same understanding to his family? Would they see his intentions clearly, or would his past dampen their perception of him? As they approached Sarah's brother's apartment, an old brick building marred by neglect, the tension palpable between them. The weight of his own upbringing collided sharply with the reality at hand. He had often avoided the straightforward, preferring curving paths that nestled in familiarity. When did safety turn into stagnation? "Ready?" Sarah whispered, her voice a fragile thread in the stillness. "More than ever," he replied, channeling a determination that erupted from a newfound willingness to confront his past. They climbed the stairs, with each creaking step echoing in Mike's mind, reminding him of the unease that had cradled his childhood. What might he witness upon opening that door? The normalcy of familial connection or a reflection of all the fears he had hidden within? When Sarah knocked, a moment stretched unnaturally, then the door swung open, revealing her brother, Jake. His expression morphed from nonchalance to concern as he took in the sight of his sister in distress. "What is going on?" he asked, glancing from Sarah to Mike, who felt that penetrating gaze pierce through any pretense he had held. "Can we come in?" Sarah ventured, and Jake stepped aside, letting them into his cluttered living room where unwashed dishes lingered on tabletops and books sprawled haphazardly across the floor. "Why do you look like you're on some kind of mission?" Jake asked, folding his arms and leaning against a wall. The defensiveness instinctively triggered Mike's fight-or-flight response. "Because we need help," Sarah responded, her voice steadier than before. "I've got to take a stand against our father, and I can't do it alone." "There's too much at stake," Mike interjected, joining forces with Sarah's plea. "We need someone who understands this family labyrinth. Her father won't just back down, he'll escalate, and we can't afford to be caught off guard." Jake's brow furrowed as he considered his sister's words, skepticism mingling with concern. "I don't know what you want me to do, Sarah. That sounds dangerous." Dangerous. The word hit Mike like a battering ram, reminding him how easily the fear of threats could twist intentions. But this was a matter of growth now. Could he stand firm in the face of hesitation? "Jake, this is why we need you," Mike pressed, desperation creeping into his tone. "Your support could shift the balance in our favor. If you believe in her, maybe we can stand together." At that moment, Mike felt the swell of emotions churn a quest for action and a plea for connection. He had felt the pattern of avoidance unraveling in Sarah, but now he stood on the precipice of his own. Would he find the courage to step into the light, or sink back into shadows that suffocated? Inside him, the battle surged, each choice cutting a deeper divide and forging a path toward emotional confrontation. The unresolved threads of his past tightened, entwining him in the new. Challenge to breach the walls he had built. Jake finally exhaled, but the silence thickened. The stakes were rising, and the ground beneath their feet felt unsteady. "All right then," Jake said slowly, a reluctant acceptance hovering in his tone. "I can help, but we do this together. No turning back." As his brother's words penetrated the layers of uncertainty, Mike felt the walls around him begin to tremor. A new partnership was forming, one that could either uplift or drag them all into deeper chaos. Could his foray into vulnerability finally harvest the resolve to embrace the fray? The realization struck he was not just confronting Sarah's fears, but his own. With their paths entwined in this shared endeavor, Mike sensed that the tide of change was only beginning to swell. Together, they would have to weather the storm brewing beyond the horizon, but would they emerge stronger or fractured under its weight? The moment of truth drew ever closer, and just beyond the door lurked the dangers they had yet to face. As the first vestiges of resolve settled among them, the atmosphere in Jake's apartment shifted. The chaotic jumble of books and discarded takeout containers seemed to recede, swallowed by a newfound gravity that hung in the air. Mike recognized the tension swirling around them. This was not just a family meeting, the stakes were as high as they could get. "Let us lay everything out on the table," Jake said, his arms dropping from their defensive position. "I don't want to commit to something without knowing the whole picture." Mike exchanged a knowing glance with Sarah. It was time to peel back the layers of their reality, a deep-seated fear coiling in his stomach as he anticipated what lay ahead. He inhaled sharply, ready to bear the emotional weight of their plans. "Okay," Sarah initiated, her voice steadying with each word. "I can't keep living in my father's shadow. I need to confront him about the way he's treated us, about the power he thinks he has. This whole time, I've internalized my feelings, thinking there was no way to change how things are. But now," she paused, flicking a glance at Mike, "I see a way out." Mike felt her unyielding courage seep into him, reviving the flicker of passion he had suppressed for so long. "You deserve to speak your truth," he added, his voice thick with conviction. "Your relationship with him has stunted you for too long, and it's time to push back." A spark of determination ignited behind Jake's eyes. "And you," he turned to Mike, "how are you prepared to help? This isn't just about us fending off Dad. We need strategy." The edge of Jake's skepticism was still present, and Mike could sense the thin line they tread between familial obligation and the clarion call to stand united. "We need a plan," Mike responded, his mind racing while anchoring his thoughts. "We have to gather evidence to validate Sarah's feelings. If we can create a narrative he can't diminish, we stand a better chance." Jake nodded cautiously, but Mike noticed the glimmer of openness in his brother's expression, a response to engagement rather than retreat. This was a turning point, and it struck Mike that he was not merely addressing the ongoing crisis surrounding Sarah, he was pushing against his own inherited tendencies to evade confrontation. So we get proof? Jake mused, his brows knitting together as he considered the next steps. What about the toxic people who have enabled his behavior? How do we counteract them? Mike felt the weight of those words press against him. His visions of confrontation intertwined with questions of strategy. How had he allowed himself to remain a passive observer in his life for so long? The thought was almost debilitating. We'll need to rally support, people who believe in Sarah's truth and reject his narrative. They might have witnessed the way he treats us. The intensity of their conversation surged again, intertwining everyone's personal journeys. Mike realized how powerful the act of decisively confronting their shared past could be. It wasn't merely about confronting Sarah's father, but liberating all of them from the chains that tied them down. The conversation flowed steadily. They walked through potential allies, people from their past who could help reinforce their truth, and Mike felt a burgeoning sense of agency unfurling within him. The shadows of his upbringing were fading beneath the bright force of action. But then, even amid their plotting, doubt began to creep back in. The faces of manipulated family members, friends, even childhood acquaintances played out like distant echoes in his mind, drowning him in uncertainty. Would they come through? What if confronting the family kingpin ignited a series of retaliatory explosions? Hey, Sarah's voice cut through his spiraling thoughts. You're with me on this, right? No looking back. He met her eyes, grounding himself in the reality before him. I'm all in, Mike declared, the sense of unity fortifying him. How liberating it felt to strip away the masks of hesitation. Together, they were dismantling a fortress of impotence built from years of fear. Yet as quickly as that surge of solidarity swelled, another doubt took root. He hadn't considered what it would mean to face their father directly, to stand in that room when dark truths emerged. Jake's practical voice again sliced through the rising tide of his anxiety. Let us start gathering our allies, then. We'll do this together, step after step. As they plotted this course, Mike felt the reality of their mission lay heavy yet electrifying before him. Would they really gather the evidence, recruit support, and prepare for the inevitable confrontation? All of this amounted to a gamble that threatened to expose their deepest wounds. It was in this moment of camaraderie that he felt himself transform, but with transformation came an awareness of the choices he had yet to face. Would he really walk that path toward vulnerability, or would fear create fault lines in this newfound strength? The question lingered as they outlined their next moves, each decision an echo of the obstacles yet to come. Unease settled back like an unwelcome guest, reminding Mike that commitment entailed immense risk, a reality that now waited like a stealthy predator just beyond the door. Could he face what lay hidden behind that door, armed with the truths he hadn't dared to confront before? The moment was crucial, and soon, they would find themselves face to face with long-avoided family demons and revelations even more shattering than anticipated loomed in the shadows. Mike's commitment reverberated in the silence that followed. The air was thick with anticipation, tinged by the inevitability of the confrontation looming ahead. He took a moment to absorb the weight of his statement. Being all in felt exhilarating yet terrifying, a double-edged sword cutting through his facade of uncertainty. As the days blurred into each other, their plans began to materialize. They communicated in whispers, embedding their strategy within the woven tapestry of daily life, careful not to alert the tension that stalked them. Each meeting felt like a tactical maneuver, a step deeper into their labyrinthine family dynamic. With every conversation, Mike discovered something new about himself: his desire for change, his abhorrence of complacency, and a capacity for leadership he hadn't known resided within him. They initiated the search for allies, and with it came a flood of memories: old friends, neighbors who had witnessed the effects of their father's cruelty. Each recollection ignited the embers of his anger, slowly releasing him from the shackles of passivity he had worn too long. Purpose surged through him, transforming a passive observer into an active participant. He followed leads, made calls, and rekindled connections that allowed them to weave a tapestry of support. But lurking beneath the surface of activity was Mike's nagging insecurity. The question persisted: what if the moment came, and he faltered? What if he stood in front of their father, and the old, familiar pattern of submission reasserted itself? It gnawed at him, threatening to undermine the confidence he was trying to cultivate. "Mike, you okay?" Sarah asked one evening, catching his brooding gaze as they worked over a cluttered table strewn with notes and contact numbers. Her voice radiated a mix of concern and encouragement. It sparked a light in him, and the words momentarily danced on his lips like fireflies. I don't want to screw this up," he confessed, the vulnerability of his admission surprising him. Her expression softened, and she reached out to squeeze his hand. "We're doing this together. Just remember why we're pushing back. This isn't just about him, it's about us reclaiming our lives. You've already shown so much strength." Her faith in him anchored him, but unease still whispered around the edges of his mind. They had gathered evidence, a scattering of testimonies from friends and acquaintances molded into a narrative that laid bare the toxic behaviors they all had endured. Yet the prospect of unveiling those realities made his stomach twist. In those moments of doubt, he sought silence. When he found a moment alone, he delved into reflections, thinking of his childhood, of the lessons unlearned, and the scars etched into his heart. The family facade he had been complicit in maintaining now loomed large like a colossal wall. He was at the cusp of scaling it, but what awaited him on the other side? He noticed the environment shift. The once chaotic disarray of the apartment began to feel like a cohesive unit. Each overlooked book now held lessons, every takeout container was a reminder of their shared struggles. They were preparing for war, albeit a symbolic one. Preparing to march against the storm that had brewed for too long. The day of the confrontation loomed nearer. With every passing hour, preparations intensified, but beneath the surface, there brewed an unsettling tension. The weight of expectations felt heavier, it translated into adrenaline as they aligned their hearts for the moment of reckoning. "Tomorrow, we meet him. Are you ready?" Jake's voice was a solid anchor among the chaos, but despair flickered in his eyes. "Ready as I'll ever be," Mike replied, though his heart raced like a tempest. Each heartbeat pounded with the weight of impending truths, the toll of traumas past threatening to unleash. The three of them shared a quiet moment of unity, a bond forged in shared purpose but shadowed by the uncertainty of what lay ahead. As the night deepened and the clock ticked closer to dawn, Mike felt the restlessness settle thicker into his bones. Ahead of them lay a confrontation that would test every ounce of resolve they had built together. In the depths of this uncertainty, an irresistible thought began to bubble within him. What if the act of confronting their past was the very thread that wove them into something stronger? Could he transform fear into fuel, flipping the narrative to one of empowerment? The answer flickered just beyond reach, tantalizing yet elusive. As he lay down to sleep, uncertainty nestled at his side, whispering haunting queries of commitment and courage. Tomorrow would bear witness to their collective confrontation, tipping the scales that had burdened them for so long. The moment was fast approaching, but which truths would rise, and would they be able to withstand the fallout? The dawn broke with a quiet resolve that filled the air like electricity, nudging Mike from restless sleep. A sense of purpose gripped him, threading through the fear that had shadowed his every thought for days. Today was the day he would not only confront Sarah's father but redefine his own narrative. As Mike absorbed the sunlight slicing through the blinds, he felt a crucial shift within himself. The delicate thread of self-doubt that had frayed his confidence now stood strong, woven into the tapestry of support shared among himself, Sarah, and Jake. They had spent weeks meticulously gathering their evidence, ensuring that their voices would not only echo in the chamber of familial strife but also resonate among those who could advocate for them. "Are you ready for this?" Sarah's voice came from the kitchen, tinged with anxiety but also a flicker of determination that mirrored his own. "More than ready," he said, the words flowing seamlessly. What had seemed daunting now transformed into a mission. As the three of them gathered for breakfast, the gravity of their undertaking hung in the air, palpable yet fortifying. As the hours trickled down to their meeting, the trio exchanged affirmations woven with resolve. Mike enveloped Sarah's hand in his, while Jake leaned against the counter with a supportive nod. The stakes were undeniably high, their shared history pulsed with the weight of unspoken fears, yet unity wrapped around them like a protective shield. Driving to the location they had chosen, a neutral cafe just across the street from his father's office, Mike couldn't shake the quick beat of his heart. He inwardly chastised himself. Today was the day to step up, to extend beyond a man shackled by fear and indecision, evolving into the protector he never thought he could be. "Let us stand firm and speak our truth," he declared, channeling their collective strength. The words ignited a small fire in their eyes, binding them in solidarity and hope. Arriving at the cafe, they stepped into the muted clamor only to find a corner seat that felt both welcoming and menacing. This was the threshold between their past and a future they yearned to claim. Mike's mind whirred with possibilities as the minutes stretched, forming palpable tension around their waiting group. When Sarah's father finally appeared, Mike felt his breath hitch. The man walked with an arrogant swagger, eyes scanning the room before landing on his daughter with a predatory intensity. Mike's blood surged, and he steeled himself for the inevitable clash. "Sarah," the man began, his voice silky yet menacing, twisting like a knife in Mike's gut. "What is this nonsense? You can't just run away." Mike interjected before she could respond, feeling a surge of protective instincts flashing through him. "This is not about running away. This is about standing up for ourselves." He leaned forward, fueled by a moral clarity ignited within him. Surprise registered on her father's face, quickly transforming into contempt. "You think you can shield her?" he scoffed. "She needs to understand the world, my world." Sarah joined in, her confidence steeped in the support around her. "No, Dad. You don't get to dictate my life anymore. I'm no longer paralyzed by your expectations." The quiver in her voice was swallowed by the determination flickering in her eyes. Mike recognized the courage in her words and felt the knots of his own fear unfurling. Standing shoulder to shoulder with Sarah, he readied himself to hear the truths of their collective past and confront them head-on. The conversation deepened, their voices rising as they shared lived experiences, unpacking the burdens imposed upon them through years of manipulation and control. Mike's chest swelled as he realized this wasn't merely a fight against her father, it was a liberation for both him and Sarah, a reclamation of the power that had long been stripped away from them. As the exchange intensified, Jake brought forth evidence they had compiled, strong testimonials that couldn't be brushed aside. "Your behavior has had consequences. We're done being silent," he stated, unwavering. The cafe seemed to resonate with their truth as each word landed with weight, weaving an undeniable narrative. Mike felt reborn, with every spoken truth. He shed layers of his old identity, emerging as a champion of their cause. "Just because you think you have power doesn't mean you hold it over us," Mike declared firmly, the room growing still. "We are moving forward, and you can't dictate our story anymore." The reality of their confrontation began to settle over Sarah's father, revealed not as fearsome, but as a fragile facade crumbling under the assault of their united front. No longer was he a figure looming over them, he saw in their eyes the strength bred from their suffering. As the conversation wrapped, the air felt lighter, liberation mingling with a gentle tremor that coursed through their solidarity. Each of their resolves had transformed. Mike now embodied the protector he envisioned, while Sarah embraced her independence, and Jake owned his place in their narrative. Leaving the cafe, the sun bathed them in warmth, illuminating the road ahead. This chapter carved into their lives marked the curtain fall on familial oppression, ushering forth a renaissance of freedom wrapped in connection. Together, they embodied a brave new outlook resting on truth, no shadows left unturned as they stepped into the vast unknown of possibility together. With newfound clarity, Mike understood that today was not merely a singular confrontation, it was a pledge to continue fighting for genuine freedom, branding him with the undeniable title of advocate, father, and now, a champion of change. As they ventured forth, he felt an unfamiliar buoyancy lifting his spirit, a promise of the life he was determined to create not only for himself but for Sarah and Jake. This was only the beginning. With each step they took into the light, a promise loomed brightly, growth and healing awaited on their horizon, a fruition of courage blooming where once had been silence. Now is the moment to secure your connection to these stories of resilience. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help share this journey with others who seek inspiration. And don't forget to comment your reactions and theories about how these incredible transformations unfold in their lives. Finally, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second, show your support for these personal overcoming stories.